Oscar Piastri experienced one of the darkest weekends of his career to date in Baku. A qualifying crash, a botched start, a penalty, and finally total retirement on the first lap. More chaos is hardly possible. And yet, thanks to a controversial rule change and the inability of his teammate Lando Norris to get the maximum out of the situation, the championship leader gets away with relatively minor damage. This is exactly where the real discussion begins. Has the FIA once again opened the door to injustices with its rule policy? And is McLaren showing a dangerous pattern of weaknesses that could ultimately blow up their title dreams? Before we dive deeper into the analysis, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and tell us in the comments whether Piastri really has the nerves for the championship fight. Already in qualifying, it became apparent that it would be a weekend full of pitfalls for Piastri. An error at the crucial moment catapulted him into the wall. Ninth starting position was the sobering consequence. But instead of damage limitation, the next blow to the neck followed on Sunday. At the start attempt, he reacted too early. The car jerked. The clutch engaged incorrectly. A clear jump start. The 5-second penalty was inevitable, but Piastri wouldn't even serve it. Because a few corners later, still in the initial hecticness, he lost control in the dirty air, rushed into the corner with far too high speed, and ended up in the barriers. A weekend to forget was finally sealed. The Australian showed himself unusually self-critical after the race. No excuses, no blame assignment. Instead, the clear statement that he had misjudged the situation and had simply been too greedy. Not a shining moment, he called it himself. He had known how slippery the track was, had underestimated the effects of dirty air, and had gone into the corner with too much speed. Words that deserve respect. But words don't change the fact that he has abruptly ended the longest point streak of his career. For 42 consecutive races, he had scored points. Now there's a 0 on the account. And yet the real explosiveness lies not in Piastri's error, but in what the rules make of it. In the past, an unserved penalty would have automatically resulted in a grid penalty in the next race. Not anymore today. The FIA has decided no longer to carry forward so-called minor penalties. For Piastri, this means no additional handicap in Singapore, no mortgage on the upcoming championship round. For many observers, this is a slap in the face of fairness. Why should a driver get away with a clear violation just because he puts the car into the wall beforehand? This is a systemic problem that the FIA has created with its new rule logic. On the other side stands McLaren and the role of Lando Norris. The Briton would have had the opportunity of his lifetime to completely turn around the championship dynamics. Instead, he didn't get beyond 7th place, and that despite being within reach of a significantly better position for large parts of the race. Already in the first stint, he failed to get past Charles Leclerc. Instead of increasing pressure with aggressive attacks, he remained in a passive position that cost him time and options. The attempt to crack Ferrari's strategy with an overcut also failed, partly because the pit crew wasted the crucial moment with a slow stop. The result was fatal. Instead of ruthlessly exploiting his teammate's retirement, Norris himself lost crucial points. The gap in the championship only shrinks from 31 to 25 points, too little considering the circumstances. Anyone who wants to become world champion cannot let such opportunities slip away. Norris's weakness in showing the last killer instinct in critical moments is now more than just a small cosmetic flaw. It's a recurring pattern that experts have been criticizing for some time. Mentality and toughness in duels are at least as important as pure pace in the title fight. And exactly there, the McLaren star repeatedly reveals gaps. Meanwhile, another laughs. Max Verstappen. The 4-time champion won the race sovereignly, reduced his deficit in the championship to 69 points, and is therefore not completely out of the title fight. For Red Bull, which is experiencing a mixed year, this is a small glimmer of hope. With 7 races to go, the scenario is still unlikely, but no longer impossible. Should McLaren continue to show such internal weaknesses and Piastri make more mistakes, Verstappen could assume the role of the laughing third party. George Russell and Carlos Sainz also set strong accents in Baku. Russell drove an error-free race, secured Mercedes an important second place, and thus underlined his position as the new team leader. Sainz, in turn, celebrated his first podium in the Williams, a historic moment for the Grove team and a clear signal that the decision to sign him was right. For Aston Martin and Ferrari, however, it was another disappointing weekend without real highlights. The headlines after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix inevitably focus on Piastri's horror weekend, but those who look deeper recognize a bigger picture. McLaren is about to lose control of a season that actually smelled of dominance. For months, the MCL 39 has been considered the fastest car in the field, the double lead with Piastri and Norris as the strongest duo. And yet the team stands there after Baku as if it had suffered a defeat itself. Two drivers who make mistakes in different ways. A crew that fails at the crucial moment. This is how you squander a comfortable championship lead. For Piastri, the crash is not just a slip-up, but a psychological warning signal. Until now, he was considered the prime example of consistency. Young, cool, error-free. Now it shows that he too can become nervous under pressure. The championship lead is not a shield, but can become a burden. The closer the end of the season gets, the greater becomes the weight of every single mistake. And unlike in 2024 when he played the role of the hunter, he is now the hunted. Exactly in this situation, true champions reveal themselves, or they break under the weight of expectations. Norris, in turn, stands at another crossroads. His pure pace is undisputed. His victories of recent years have shown that he can control races. But in situations like in Baku, he lacks that certain something, the ability to tear a race away with all hardness. Instead, he too often remains in tactical considerations, trusts in strategies, and hopes for competitors' mistakes. A real world champion goes on the offensive himself in such moments. That he remained stuck behind Leclerc, although Ferrari's performance was visibly weaker, is a symptom of exactly this problem. The situation is aggravated by McLaren's strategic uncertainties. The slow pit stop in Baku is not an isolated case. Already in earlier races, the team lost valuable seconds through coordination errors or decisions made too late. When a team claims to win both titles, then such weaknesses must not exist. At Red Bull or Mercedes, such blunders would become a matter for the boss internally. At McLaren, they seem almost every day. This is extremely dangerous, not only for the drivers, but for the entire project. In parallel, Verstappen sneaks back into the picture. The Dutchman knows how to strike back from nothing. 69 points deficit may seem reassuring at first glance, but anyone who knows the history of Formula One knows. Title fights often tip exactly when the favorites rock themselves into security. Verstappen drives liberated, has nothing to lose, and can use every race as an attack. Should McLaren actually lose even more points through internal weaknesses, the four-time champion could become the greatest danger, precisely because nobody really has him on their radar. George Russell should not be underestimated either. The Briton has finally established himself at Mercedes as the new leadership figure. His second place in Baku was not spectacular, but it was efficient and error-free. Exactly this type of race ultimately decides on championship positions. Mercedes works quietly but consistently, and Russell uses every opportunity to expand his position. Should McLaren continue to stumble, he too could become a surprise in the title fight. Carlos Sainz, meanwhile, delivers the feel-good story of the weekend. A podium in the Williams. Hardly anyone would have considered this possible before the season. But exactly such results show how unpredictable Formula One has become in 2025. Williams benefits from stable technology, clever management, and a Sainz who is finally driving liberated again. For the championship, this podium has little relevance, but for the morale of the Spaniard and his team, it's worth gold. And it puts additional pressure on McLaren, because even smaller teams prove that they can cause a stir on a good day. The question now is, how does McLaren deal with this double burden? On one side stands Piastri, who must find his nerves again. On the other side, Norris, who must finally develop the ultimate hardness. At the same time, the team must take the next step strategically and operationally. In Baku, it became painfully clear. With half solutions, you won't win a championship title. The picture that emerges is dangerously clear. Piastri appears vulnerable, Norris incomplete, McLaren inconsistent. And exactly into these gaps the rivals push. Verstappen smells blood, Russell lurks, Sainz shows fighting spirit. What began as a season of dominance threatens to become a nerve-wracking affair that McLaren has brought upon itself.